Good day. Hello, everyone. The next session is with cross-disciplinary collaborations and applications. And our first panelist is John Cays from New Jersey Institute of Technology. Welcome.
Great. Well, I'm really happy to be part of this year's SIGGRAPH Soiree session on cross-disciplinary collaborations and applications. I'm going to talk a little bit about how closely integrating environmental impact data sets into virtual building modeling workflows help architecture students design more sustainably. So LCA, life cycle assessment, is the quantitative backbone for all sustainable design frameworks in the United States, certainly, and a lot around the world, helping designers address their part in today's climate crisis. Standards such as LEED, net zero building, circular economy, all use LCA to measure and report on environmental embodied impacts of prospective building designs. So I just want to say, why this is important today. An unprecedented wave of urban growth is driving climate change. Let me put this into perspective. Over the next 4 decades, we will add 2.4 trillion square feet of building floor area. Imagine constructing an entire New York City, that's all 5 boroughs, every month for the next 40 years. To help meet this demand, NJIT focuses on how to quantify and compare each design decision's measurable and embodied environmental impacts as required by our National Accreditation Board. So we put environmental stewardship values into practice in every required advanced architecture studio and synthesis seminar that we teach at the upper level. We ensure that every student who graduates can use life cycle assessment to consider the measurable environmental impacts of their design decisions in a particular architectural project. So design juries and clients typically sit in front of students and practitioners and discuss the formal merits of a design project, asking any of them, and most people, to focus on the technical, say, eutrophication potential or even global warming potential of a project is a hard sell. While LCA serves as the quantitative backbone for every sustainable design framework, it takes a lot of time to move students from a heuristics-based design decision-making approach to a quantitative data-driven one. What has proven most successful is to meet those students where they are in their own established design workflows. In the last 3 chapters of my book, An Environmental Lifecycle Approach to Design, I discuss lifecycle tools used to feed design modeling software. I continue to work to integrate these particular tools and methods into NJIT's architecture curriculum. So well-established building models provide architects a ready armature to plug in LCI and LCA data feeds at several points during a project. This diagram here shows a large architecture firm's building information modeling workflow in 2007. While much of the original structure persists today, new tools to simulate, quantify, and visualize environmental impact, these have emerged. This workflow will soon be augmented with new AI-driven LCA offerings. But McNeil's Rhino and Autodesk Revit will, however, likely continue to act as a primary geometric, parametric, and information modeling tool. One-click LCA, this is our current tool of choice at NJIT, since it leverages the entire digital building information modeling workflow. One-click LCA seamlessly merges with Revit building material databases, as well as Rhino's parametric workflows. And in 2019, we piloted one NJIT architecture project to show how LCA can provide insight and guidance in a student's workflow. We used it to quantitatively compare both the student's own design options as well as different LCA tool sets. So how the students are working as well as what's available to help them do what they need to do. During our studies, we observed indicators from multiple LCA tools that consistently pointed to similar design decisions when carbon impact was given the greatest weight. Beyond LCA tools, students who commit to a BIM workflow now have a range of analytical tools to understand a particular design's operational energy usage, And the growing list of tools can be used in combination to provide guidance from operational energy simulations to embodied environmental impacts and beyond. NJIT continues to work with our industry partners to develop new tools like this embodied carbon tool from Chaos Enscape. This early iteration, basically vaporware, developed in part by Enscape's Monica Nelson, compares various design options for interior materials. Monica is also an NJIT alumna and a current design instructor at NJIT, as well as a former ACM SIGGRAPH SV and SV team leader. In addition to the beta tools that we can use to study the embodied impacts of various building components and assemblies to find hotspots, Monica is also working on the visualization tools for real-time operational energy analysis. We beta test, evaluate, and integrate these types of tools into our design studios as early as possible so that students can really visualize these different kinds of scenarios in their actual geometric models. We're also experimenting with universal scene description powered tools that can ingest and synthesize any type of data in real time into a single central model. Those of you who are familiar with USD are probably most familiar with the kind of geometric modeling combinations, but you can also bring in non-geometric metadata as well. And it can integrate those different types of geometric and non-geometric model together so that they can work together. The interchange of BIM and LCA data will continue to merge ever more seamlessly. It will continue to drive down the negative embodied impacts of our built environment. As we integrate new LCA tools and methods, NJIT and its students will continue to be leaders in this evolution to a greener and better built environment. Please see my book for more information on how we position NJIT students to master and use these powerful methods in design. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, John. Next, we'll listen to Chris Baeza, and welcome back, Nick, from Drexel University.
So today we are going to talk about, Nick and I are going to talk about cross-disciplinary curricular design that he and I have been engaged with, specifically at the intersection of immersive technology and the fashion industry. So we saw an opportunity, he and I, given just our backgrounds in the industry that seem very divergent, but we really saw the intersectionality of both of our disciplines, which really drove us to engage in this nearly 5.5 years ago, I think. So what I love about partnering with Nick is his broad definition of immersive media, not just being simply being in a headset, but incorporating AR and VR and digital experiences in physical space, and as well as our immersive spaces. And we take that into this discipline or this huge industry of fashion. So we've been engaged in cross-disciplinary collaboration between these two disciplines, and we've created a course, and we have lab space called, and the course is Immersive Media and Merchandising. And so there's several things that we are engaged with and had to consider, and then still consider, because we're always evolving. So we recruit students from multiple majors and cohorts, both undergrad and grad. There's no prerequisite. So we really are kind of saying, if this subject interests you, please come in. I love this quote. This is from Nick, so I can't take credit for it. And our course is very much like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So we are really creating, while we have a model in mind, we have maybe some outcomes. We're really kind of creating on the fly. We put students in teams of mixed majors and cohorts. So not only is it diverse disciplines, of digital media students, maybe virtual production students with fashion industry students, we're looking at mixing second-year students, third-year students, grad students, seniors, as we put these teams together. We do a lot of individualized introductory assignments, and we'll show some examples of that in a minute. That's new to everyone, starting off, and then they kind of come together and bring their disciplines into this final deliverable or live pitch. Much of this is around brand storytelling in the fashion industry. So we do work with a live client in pretty much all of our iterations of the class that they've had to present to. So this is an example of the students really coming together. The first picture being, because we knew we were going to use a 3D tool of creation of both apparel and bags, and we did apparel one term, and then the second term we did bags. But none of the students understood garment construction. So all of them were on the same playing field in that sense. And so the top picture is here. We had them break down various items, garments, and I had some bags in there where they could get the notion in analog form of pattern pieces, just merely like a puzzle, right? So they got to see and lay this down, and they did it together. Then we bring them into the digital space to work on garment creations. And then we talk about, and again, this was new to our digital students and our fashion industry students. Then we bring them into putting these items into some kind of virtual environment. So obviously our digital students understood some of these tools in Unreal Engine and such like that, and it was very new to the fashion design students, all culminating at the end in a project that challenged them to work with a company like Known Supply, do an analysis of Known Supply of what they were really about. And Known Supply is a free trade company. They highlight their workers. And the idea was for them to really emphasize the traceability of their supply chain and look at their e-commerce as a storytelling platform using these immersive, using the immersive tools that they learned in our class. And so Nick, I'm not gonna play it right now, right? Or did you want me? Yeah. So some of our research questions that guide us in the development of our course, because we do change it every single time we teach. So we look at, will VR and AR revolutionize product development? Brand storytelling, which we've been doing a lot. So will immersive media and VR improve brand engagement? Can immersive media and VR increase sales in the wholesale environment? At the store level, utilizing AR and VR to provide the ultimate shopping experience. And the last thing that we've been really playing around with, e-commerce. We'll try before buying in VR, reduce returns and exchanges. So these are just a few of the many questions that we have at this intersection of immersive media and the fashion industry that we bring into the coursework that Nick and I design. And that was it. I was told to be speedy. So Nick, do you want to jump in?
No, I don't want to take anything away from who's coming next. I guess the main thing is to, from my perspective as the computer graphics interaction kind of professor, I always feel like our students in their traditional coursework are so focused on their specific technology that they lose sight of how it fits into the world around them. And that was why I was so excited about this opportunity to start this class with you. It was you and your group that reached out like, hey, we're seeing more and more need for these digital technologies and more applications in our sphere of influence. But what do we do? And I think that as you and I looked at what was happening in industry, we were seeing literally that exact scenario play out within industry where retailers and fashion experts really didn't understand the tech, like didn't even know how to put it into their own context. It just, we know this thing exists. What do we do? And meanwhile, the there were loads of technologists that really just didn't understand how fashion connects with consumers as individuals, as personas, as personalities, didn't understand how the market chain worked. And I'm super excited about how the students have responded to this class, because they end up working together and they actually become experts in their field, and they get to share what they know with their classmates. And I really I love that we share that overhead image of everyone getting to tear apart garments, because for digital students, I think it's the first time that they really think about garments as being, coming from these flat paneled shapes and being assembled. And it changes their context for how they make digital garments and how they envision those things. And so it's just an exciting opportunity to be able to have these students grouped together. So with that, I think I'll pass it on to our next presenter.
Awesome. So our next panelist is Barbara Klein from Texas A&M University. So
actually, I think Barbara is not connected, so we'll have to we'll go to Joe.
Okay, so we'll go with Joe Geigel from Rochester Institute of Technology. Welcome, Joe.
Thank you very much. And there's my slides, and thanks for inviting me to talk here. I'm a professor in computer science at RIT, and I'll be talking about a no API approach to an introductory graphics course. I do want to start with a SIGGRAPH story. All right, and this was SIGGRAPH 2019 in LA. So I'm in the hallway and I see this student running toward me, a student I haven't seen for a while. She graduated many years before. Really happy to see her. The first thing she says to me is, "Why did you teach us OpenGL?" Nobody uses OpenGL anymore. And to her credit, she was sort of right. I mean, OpenGL sort of like had its end of life in 2017, and she was really frustrated that the job she was doing did not use OpenGL in lieu of these newer technologies like Vulkan or Metal. So, I mean, this is also in the fact that the course that she was taking, the introductory graphics course, did say that it would focus on rasterization techniques and that you would use a graphics API. Okay, so this sort of got me thinking, what should we do about this? I mean, RIT has run a graphics course for quite a long time, using an API in many iterations of this course. I mean, starting with Figs, this is certainly before my time. But we moved to OpenGL, and we use fixed function OpenGL to begin with, and I love fixed function OpenGL because it was a great way to introduce the graphics techniques in a very, very simple language. But then they introduced shaders, and okay, we live with shaders. We moved everything to the shaders, wasn't too bad. And then they added more shaders, and then things started getting complicated. So we even moved to WebGL, which is like a smaller version of OpenGL. And folks in our game department wanted to use DirectX, wanted to use Microsoft hardware. The straw that broke the camel's back for me was the introduction of Vulkan. All right, so here I'm in a quandary. We want to teach the graphics concepts. We want to give students a taste of a graphics API, but Vulkan is just so complicated just to get a triangle onto the screen. So what do we do? So the problems that we came up with are what API we're going to use. Many times the API forced a given language. So if you're going to use WebGL, you're forced to use JavaScript. Not that JavaScript is overwhelming, but some folks didn't know JavaScript coming in. Many instructors who didn't in the past use OpenGL insisted on using C or C++, which is okay, but if the student doesn't know those language, what do you do about it? We don't want them learning a language as well as graphics. As the API became more and more complex, we found ourselves teaching less about graphics and more about hardware. All right, not that hardware is a bad thing for a computer science course, it isn't, but this is a graphics course. All right, and one thing I definitely found, even just using OpenGL and WebGL, students get caught up in the minutia of the API. Right, all the calls, all the functions, all the variables and the defines. I found a lot of students were just Google solutions for their assignments because they didn't want to deal with learning all the APIs. So the approach we decided to take is based upon an approach we took many years ago to teach ray tracing. So we had a course in ray tracing that Nan Schaller and I introduced way back when, where we had students develop a ray tracer from scratch, a little at a time. And as we introduced the concepts, the ray tracer got more and more complicated. We decided, can we do something similar with rasterization? And that's the approach we started to take. So rather than trying to choose an API, we decided, well, let's not use an API. Instead, we'll have the students build a rasterization engine from scratch using whatever language they feel comfortable using. We push them towards a framework inspired by shader-based OpenGL. All right. So we would introduce a concept. We would say something about the framework. Introduce another concept. Another thing about the framework. So they were sort of building this OpenGL-like rasterization engine, which means I got a taste of how that worked, as well as the graphics concept that we wanted to convey. Here's a screenshot of the schedule from the last time we gave this course, which was back in the fall. So, we focus on both, 2D stuff and 3D. Surprisingly enough, we spend the first half of the semester on 2D methods to get folks used to rasterization and interpolation and some modeling. And then we go into 3D where we implement the 3D pipeline. We sort of I've found this to be sort of analogous to the big debate in computer science of what should you use for a first language, for an introductory programming class, and people have their favorite C#, Python, some folks like Rust and whatnot. But the conclusion we came with regards to this is, these courses are not necessarily there to teach a language. It teaches you how to learn so you can learn new languages. All right, so we took the same approach for our graphics API. All right, we not really want to focus on one API. It's not a course on OpenGL, it's not a course on Vulkan, but instead, if indeed you have to use these other APIs, you know enough about it so you'll be able to learn them. We've been doing this for 3 semesters now with this approach. This is the student, and we asked students what they thought about it. On the whole, most of the students found, they liked the approach. They found it useful. We still did have the holdouts who basically said, well, I still come out without knowing an API. We would have liked that. But this is what the students thought. However, there were some downsides of this approach. In future classes, not necessarily, language or framework classes, other graphics classes where folks needed an API, students needed to go to API. A lot of them use their knowledge of what they get in the basic course towards future classes, which we didn't have. Unfortunately, we don't have a follow-up course on an advanced API. I would have really loved if we had a second course just on Vulkan, for example, to see how students would react in that class after learning the first class. So we don't have that data yet. And another approach that one of our instructors are using, given the new way that computing is done in graphics, is what about using web GPU? So that might be able to way to use the current structure of GPU type programming, but not have the complexity of using Vulkan. And with that, I'll stop here, and I'll be interested to gather any thoughts from folks who do run an introductory CS graphics course. What approach you take, and what have you heard from your students? So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. And there we have Barbara Klein now from Texas A&M University. So welcome, Barbara.
Hi, thank you very much. Hi, yeah, I'm Barbara Klein. I am an instructional associate professor at Texas A&M, and in a myriad of ways. I'm a co-director for Virtual Production Institute and the associate program director for graduate programs. Been with the university in this different roles of leadership and academics for the last 7 years. And as an academic leader, I developed a curriculum that fosters collaborations and champions kind of entrepreneurial thinking. And so there was an opportunity to integrate this into the study abroad program, which we have within our program. Students are required to have a semester away or do an internship. And so with this, I took that opportunity to reach out to Mays Business School and to work on an interdisciplinary study abroad program that emphasizes applied learning, design, and perspectives in marketing. This is very unique approach because while there are many study abroad programs, very few of them have faculty led that are interdisciplinary. And so with that Mays Business School professor, we created the curriculum that is very personalized to what we both do and what the students need, as well as what the clients need in country. And so it's a 6-hour program, which allows us to have a class that's separate for each of our disciplines, and then a shared course that overlaps. And through this, we have the students learn cultural changes. They really have to think about things from a different perspective. So it's not study abroad in that you are going and visiting companies and writing a report on what you see. You're actually engaged with people on the ground. You hear personal stories, you hear the complications they have to deal with, the legal issues they have to deal with. Marketing is an entirely different animal abroad, depending on where you are. So cultural changes are very impactful in marketing. Like we don't, what would go over very well in America doesn't go over very well in some other areas. And so students really have to kind of regroup how they think. And I believe that that is a unique property of this one, in that we put the students with the clients, and the clients are very engaged in the activity. So the students meet with clients multiple times during the study abroad. So it's a working, active engagement study abroad, as opposed to just a reflection. And so with that, students really gain real world skills. They understand the subject matter that they're bringing to the table and the value that has for their client. The students work on design and marketing principles for most of the businesses we've worked with. They learn how to design and deliver appropriate materials for the desired audience. And of course, they work together. And marketing students are very different, maybe not very different, but very different from visualization students in that how they think. And when you go through a degree program, you can be very siloed because people around you are using the same terminology. They understand where you're coming from. When you put two groups together, designers that think and use a certain vernacular, and marketing and business majors that use another vernacular, you bring those together, there really is a strength that is delivered to the client. So during this, we do, while we're working with a client, we also visit other small businesses and evaluate how they are achieving the goals and reflecting on how that can be incorporated into their deliverable. So some kind of overview benefits, I think, of study abroad in particular is the collaboration, and it creates more of an institutional culture. You get to meet people that are outside of your area. You also gain a lot of skill sets as far as system thinking approach. Again, you get out of your silo. There's a teamwork, communication, and adaptability that the students come away with. And I also believe that they come away with a certain value of their own that they didn't have going into the study abroad program. So they come out stronger, knowledgeable about what they can bring to the table, what their skill sets are, and their ability to work with others in a foreign environment. They often there's a language barrier, and so one of the first lessons that we do for this one is learning how to talk slower, which I have to practice myself most of the time. So kind of slowing down what they say and simplifying what they say so that their client can understand where they're coming from. And so that translates into the interdisciplinary as well, because sometimes you assume someone knows what you're speaking about because you're used to working with people in your silo, and this kind of helps them expand that. And so while this course doesn't necessarily solve a problem or a pain point, I think it's innovative and forward thinking in a way that is beneficial to students, and it helps engage them with other areas that they might not normally engage with. But so this is our 2 classes. We first took about 40 students, and so when they travel, we treat this very much like a working class, and they're assigned roles and responsibilities and partake as one, and we treat it kind of like a job where each one of them has a role that they have to fulfill, and they get graded on that role, and then they also, that title is something that can be reflected in their resume, because often when you're studying abroad, it's of value to a company to know that you've expanded your horizons a little bit. This slide represents the students in action. In the top left, the students are presenting their presentation to their client within our classroom. In the center, you can't see the client's on the right-hand side. We met in an informal setting to discuss the client's needs and different aspects moving forward. Again, the one on the far upper right is also that. It's meeting the clients for the second or third time to gain more information and insight. And of course, we have regular courses and information within the class, and that can be done inside the classroom or outside. And since this is a study abroad, we did hold a class outside, which I thought was very fun. And then in the bottom right-hand corner, having kind of an impromptu class when we didn't have a space. And so this next one is one of those businesses that we visited. This is a small business owner who sells oysters to other local businesses. This particular area is known for their oyster farming. And of course, we did have a translator at this location, and they were training our students on how to properly shuck an oyster. And then this is just another image of our students collaborating and socializing over new adventures. And so this is like building teams, building confidence, and then of course growing your network and your relationships. And I have to say, the rock climbing on the bottom left was an addition, and it was very team building oriented. And then here is just another group of images from their adventures. Again, you'll see us there with the flag. We do travel with the flag and represent. We do post back in our Instagram social media regularly during the trip. And then just a couple of the students along the way. This picture in the bottom of this girl boarding the bus with her toilet paper roll. I added that because while we want to bring innovation to clients, the students innovate when they need to. And when you need to have tissue on hand, she improvised. And I was thinking that was just very innovative on her part. And that's all I have. We have been using this model for 3 years. Our fourth is going to be this summer. And it's been very successful and well received.
Good. Thank you, Barbara, and thank you all for your amazing presentations. Now we'll go for some questions. I have one. Talking about cross-disciplinary collaborations, I'm really interested in this matter. At Unitech, where I work, I always try to push for this kind of projects, but it's always a challenge. It's really difficult to put together all these people right from different fields. They are taught in different ways. They know complementary stuff, but from other angles, right? So this is a general question for you all. What strategies have been most effective in fostering collaboration between students from such diverse fields? We have here fashion, retail, digital media, architecture, programmers. What do you do to make it work?
Well, I can start, Mario. Basically, what I was presenting on is focused at the nexus of two different languages. These are fundamentally different kinds of people who think different kinds of things and talk about different kinds of things. And sometimes it's the relationship is really difficult to make legible. So I think the first thing is to make it relevant. You know, why do you want to have this conversation in the first place? Is it going to be mutually beneficial? Is it worth getting out of your comfort zone? All those things I think have to be front and center in order for people to understand the value of it, why do this in the first place. And then the next thing is to sort out the specific differences. And it's not to say, yes, we all speak different languages, now what? It's to say, okay, these are the very particular examples, and if there needs to be a glossary, a thesaurus, you need to make that explicit. These are the things that we're talking about. When I say, for instance, like in these two domains that I'm dealing with, one life cycle assessment, the other one design. If I say material to each of these, just the word material, what does material mean to each of these disciplines? And each one, almost in every single case, will give me the same answers. From the designer side, they mean the physical materials you're going to use to build a building. From the LCA people, who are typically chemists and economists and engineers, and they're going to say, well, material means whatever really matters, you know, whatever is important. That's material to the question. Now, obviously, if you're having a conversation, you do not define those things first, that term is going to continue to mean what it means discretely to each of these people, and they're going to talk past each other. So, you know, and there's about, I'd say, maybe 15 of those terms that you have to be really clear about. And then you sort of show, well, why is material, right, in the conversation? And then you start to get into the specific tools, and they see, oh, they're talking about this, and they care about that, and this is how we measure it. This is it. And if say the LCA folks can understand what is a difficult challenge for a designer, then they can work to make it more legible, and they can say, oh, this is what, these are the particular material impacts or numbers or pieces of data that you're going to need to focus on, because the mountain of it is so huge, it's overwhelming. And the designers just, they walk away, throw their hands up, no, I'm not going to do any of it. So it's really that kind of priming the pump on both sides to show them, okay, this is why it's worth it. This is what the specific differences are. This is what we mean. And also then these are the tools that we can use to translate between one domain and the other. That's how I look at it.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, let me see. I don't know if Chris or Nick wants to answer that question too, because they have this retail marketing, right? Fashion, digital media, and these are really different fields. How did you manage for collaboration with these teams?
Yeah, that's a really great question. You know, as I was listening to the previous answer too and thinking about this, Nick and I really model that. I think that's the best way I can answer it in the classroom. Coming from, you know, we talk about our backgrounds, which are both we're professionals in our respective industries, and you know, made the transition to academia. And I think it's evident with the students that we model, you know, what we're wanting them to model. And so there's a natural respect, I think, of each other's disciplines and what we bring to the table and the way that we designed how Nick and I engage, how we split up lecture time versus active time, you know, versus who's introducing this activity, who's doing this, who's giving critique on this, is it both critique? Like, it's very much happening from us modeling this, and it has trickled, you know, trickled into how our students engage with each other and see each other. I think that's the best answer that we can give. I think there's just this respect of each other's discipline. We don't know this, right? Both disciplines are like, you know, what the heck is Unreal Engine? What the heck is Epic Games? What the heck are all these toys, you know? And then you got, what do you mean the fashion industry? I mean, I get dressed every day, but like, what? Like, what's this fashion industry? And so there's this natural curiosity. There's this natural, like, I don't know, but it's safe. Like, I think that we create a great environment of safety, of it's totally cool that you don't know this industry at all, the other industries, and you're going to be like working together. And we model it. That's all I can say, is like they see it in how we engage with each other.
Yeah, I'll just add on that. I mean, like Chris was saying, the extent of my fashion knowledge is like, well, which T-shirt did I get from SIGGRAPH this year? You know, because that's where my fashion comes from, and I'm open to sharing that with the students, and I come in and I always comment about like the fashion students have they're together, you know, and I'm coming in my little black hoodie or whatever, but the idea that we exude excitement about each other's field. And so the students see, you know, they've been in, a lot of them have been in classes with me in their digital studies. And so then they're seeing, they're coming into a class because I'm, you know, maybe oh, I want another class with Nick. And they're seeing me be excited about what Chris is sharing. And it's like, oh, you know, like this is really important that you know, there's a story behind the brand. And we talk about storytelling when we're in, you know, developing a game or developing a VR experience or developing an animation, and it demystifies this whole other field. And that's one of the things I think that helped dissolve the barriers, is just revealing that all these things that we've been studying in our kind of our own little silo actually have application in other places, and it just kind of opening those new channels. So I think that helps.
Thank you. We have a question from Ryan Buell. This, I think, is also for Chris and Nick. So do you find students are able to iterate faster, identify more issues, solve problems, see things that were hidden in the design with the use of VR? when they see their designs brought to virtual life, that they can experience just as they would experience when created in the real world?
I'm gonna say yes, and I'll be, just to be really honest, we don't necessarily do, like, we don't have students in headsets. We just don't. I don't know. I mean, I think it's so much because Nick has always drilled kind of into me that it's much broader than just merely a headset. And I think the hardware in itself has some, you know, it's not as smooth in a teaching environment, but yes, are these students able to see when they're creating a bag in 3D and putting it in a space? They're able to see and solve problems a lot. And again, these are students in both disciplines that have never sat at a sewing machine before, right? Like that's, and yet they're able to, oh, that doesn't work. They can see that, like, what they've just designed, when they render it in 3D, it's falling off the shoulder, it's doing something weird, or the bag is falling. And so, yes, they are absolutely able to much quicker see what works and doesn't work. And thus, you know, to some extent, it's accelerating their learning because they're starting at ground zero. They've never done, outside of ripping the garments apart on day one when Nick and I have them, they have not sat at a sewing machine. They haven't had to cut a pattern. They haven't been in a factory setting where soft goods are being put together. So yes, I think they're seeing this and they're able to say, oh yeah, that doesn't work. Oh my gosh, why doesn't it work? And so there's a lot of like a lot of learning happening there. I've also seen some of Nick's students that come like on the animation side. So we do have some kids that are animators, and I have seen them fly like within like a week, you know, what their garments look like on their avatars and whatever game they were creating, whatever animation they were doing. I mean, like it's like night and day. It's like a 360 of what they're able to do. And what often they're like, I didn't realize, like they'll just say like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize this, or I didn't, like, I just was thinking like paper dolls, you know, and they weren't really understanding the 3D form because they never worked in kind of like the live 3D form, if that makes sense, right? They were just working within their game or within, you know, this avatar that they were creating. And I'm like amazing. I'm just thinking of this one student. I know, Nick, you probably know who I'm talking about. I mean, like night and day in her renderings of clothing for avatars within a game. I mean, like beautiful stuff so quickly. So that tells me, yes, you know, a student like that is iterating faster, solving problems faster, and actually becoming more creative as a result of this inner collaboration in the way we design the class.
Yeah, and I was just going to add to that exactly that, absolutely. Like we'll see the fashion students, as an example, are able to iterate faster because they're working with a digital designer. And there was an instance where it's like, oh yeah, I'm going to design this store, and it's you know the walls are going to be this dark red, and then you build it in 3D, and you're like, oh no, that's really not going to work, is it? And it gets changed, and it's because they're working side by side. And the exact same thing plays out for what I call the digital native students, in that they're working with these fashion students. And so they're getting substantive feedback just throughout the week without being in class, because they're working with somebody outside of their discipline who has genuine fashion expertise. And so their work as a digital artist moves up in an exponential amount, just because they're iterating with a partner that's outside, that's, you know, it doesn't focus just on what menu buttons are being used.
Thank you. We also have a comment from Ryan. He said 6% really disliked. I think this was from the presentation from Joe, right? This no API approach for programmers, even though it's a small percentage. I would like to ask, why do you think, Joe, that this 6% just really dislike that approach?
I'm sort of with Ryan's comment here. You can't please everyone. And it's true, because some people, it depends on why people come to take the class. All right. Are they looking to get an idea of graphics, or are they just looking to, did they come in really wanting to learn OpenGL, or really wanting to learn the API? So I did have comments, and I think I can identify those 6% from the comments saying, I really wish that, you should do this in Vulkan. Well, yeah, I know we should do it in Vulkan, but we're having trouble with doing it in Vulkan. But they really came in wanting, the API experience, because they wanted to use this stuff. If I can make a comment on Barbara and Nick's comments, I tell you, I would love to take your class, to be honest. And I think that, a lot of the folks who come out of my class, they work in different industries and such. It's about the project, the project itself is the goal, regardless of which discipline you're coming from, and the technical folks will pick up what they need to know of the application, and the expertise comes from the non-technical folks, if you will. I had a student who came out of my class, and surprisingly, he got a job working on dental appliances, 3D visualizations of dental appliances. He knew nothing about the dental field, So graphics is one of those areas that, can be applied, in places that you wouldn't think. All right. And in order to apply that, you really do need the expertise of the folks in that discipline or in that area. So.
Thanks. I do have another question. I think we can all agree that the real world is cross-disciplinary, right? But usually, at least in my experience, I don't know if that's the same for you, but in universities, not that much, right? This kind of projects that you are presenting are in that percentage a little lower than just this experiences, like you are from digital media, so you're working just in your field. And what can we do to have more of this? Maybe not only from the teacher, right? My class, but as an institutional level, what can we do to have more of these kind of projects that cross disciplines?
I can start again if you'd like.
Yeah, please.
I have pretty serious jet lag right now. I just got back from Saudi last night, and it was one of the most revelatory experiences I think I've ever had. Going there and interfacing with the lifecycle assessment community in Saudi Arabia that is working right now to sustainably develop what they call the Giga projects, which are enormous development projects across Saudi, and they're literally transforming the landscape, but also working on the kind of social and political kinds of issues that have been a particular way in Saudi for a long time, and now those are also changing. So it's a really interesting time to be there. To answer your question though, is I had to be willing myself. This is what we have agency over ourselves, and I need to go over and ask questions to understand what it is that the other discipline needs. And they were also very good about asking me what I did and what I do to foster those interdisciplinary, cross-disciplinary relationships. And so it's a lot of it is just being open yourself first, because many people believe that nobody wants to talk to them. And so I think as we heard earlier, modeling that behavior is the way to show that it's okay to, first of all, not know something, and be open to learning new things, to be curious, and to be respectful of the differences that those different disciplines bring. And also, in that curiosity, seeing that opportunity to really change your own approach to, in my case, design, and to take it, for instance, I went to art school, and I, know what it is to live in a qualitative world and to operate from qualitative kind of standards. To change that into, well, you know what, maybe I need to learn chemistry, and maybe I really need to learn more about kind of a data language that translates physical properties into a machine readable kind of way to process. In order to do what? Well, in order to help the world, in order to help, the condition that we see ourselves with 8 billion people on the planet. So you bring it down to real world issues, making those things resonant with more people. So they say, yeah, we really do need to be talking about these things. That creates the natural inclination for people to operate across their own discipline, outside of their own discipline. So it's, I guess what I'm saying is just to encourage that by your own behavior. That's, I think, the first thing to do.
I can add to that. I think one way to get this done is to find a good collaborator. Right? In an academic setting, although you may have to look, I bet there are people just like you who want to collaborate on these things and are afraid to do so. If you find the person with that passion, the same passion as you, then the rest is just getting your management the sign off on it. And I found, in my experience, if you have folks from different disciplines in an institution willing to work together, the administration is not going to tell you no. All right. Because you're willing to make it work because both parties or multiple parties are interested in doing it. So my advice would be, find a good collaborators. Nick and Nick and Chris, good thing you have each other. So
Okay, thank you. I think that's it. Do we have any more questions? Or I don't think so, right? So
I actually do have one for Nick and Chris, and that is to I wonder if in looking at your overall tool sets and thinking about the future, what it can actually. I'm going to turn this back on you, Nick. What your future options do you see? Because if you imagine what your experience has been, say, in the retail side of just as the buyer, and I think a lot of your work goes to that audience, that user group, and I wonder the things that are maybe the uncanny valley between the physical fashion that you want to try on and this kind of experience where you're walking up, I want to buy something and I don't know, and I'm scared to order it because I don't know what it's going to look like, and not just look like, but feel like. So I wonder if there are kind of a haptic kind of opportunity here as well. And with all the I realize that this is maybe the hardware might be a challenge, but and imagine, putting something on and feeling the way it would look, the way it would be on your, not just seeing how it would look, right? And then that three-dimensional kind of relationship that those flat kinds of patterns have on the body itself.
Yeah. So, by the way, Chris had to go pick up a child from school, so
Understood.
I guess I'm on my own on this one. But one of the things that we've been doing too is trying to avoid limiting ourselves by the existing technology, and we challenge the students to think about, here's what exists right now today. What do you think, in an ideal world, if this trajectory were to continue, what do you think could be possible, and what would that actually look like, or what could that actually look like? And so we're giving them an opportunity to kind of extrapolate for where things are today, and we don't necessarily say, no, you can't do that because that doesn't exist yet. And I think that there's a lot of opportunities there when you think about that. Currently, a lot of VR is still handheld controllers, and there are lots of tools now coming out that are like live hand tracking and with variable effectivity. And so, okay, well now if we just got rid of those hand controllers, and this was something we started a few years ago, it's like, just imagine the hand controllers aren't a thing anymore. What could you do? And so if you're in a VR experience, you could have a catalog of fabrics that have no texture in terms of color on them, but you've got all of the tactile options available. And so now you could try things on, and you could try and feel things. It's like, okay, this is soft, this is stiffer, this has a lot of texture to it, this is smooth. But
Silk versus corduroy, basically.
yeah, exactly. But in VR, you can characterize that differently. And it's interesting too that right now, for example, at SIGGRAPH conference last year, HP came out with that Z-Captus system for doing full PBR capture of textiles, and it was a bespoke scanning system that partnered with Adobe's Substance, and it just seemed like an aha moment to me, like, oh my gosh, this is what we've been waiting for. We've been teaching these students to do this, and they're always kind of like, but I can't get the actual fabric, like all the characteristics of it. And then sure enough, one day here's this bit of technology that solves that problem. So it's one of our challenges in general with these things is we're teaching students to prepare themselves for the world they'll graduate into. They might come in and we might get them in a class in their first or second year, and they're not going to graduate for 3 or 4 years. What's the world going to be like when they graduate is what we're trying to prepare them for. So yeah, it's a really good point of, well, how does this feel? How does this really look? And we try to challenge the students to not be entirely constrained by what does exist right now, but we definitely want to inform them about this is what's here right now, and let them kind of extrapolate from there.
Thank you, Nick. We do have a few more minutes. If you have any more questions, go ahead. In any case, I will pass on back to Nick. I just want to thank you all for this presentation, for your presentations. I have learned a lot. So yeah.
I wanted to check in. Actually, I have a question now. Since John is, I see your question, John, and I raise a question to Barbara, and I'm just curious as to, what are the next steps with that program? I just love the idea of getting students outside of their traditional classroom spaces, and clearly that's what you're doing here, and getting, really kind of like stimulating more creative thought. And I'm just curious as to what you envision as being next steps, because I know a lot is developing and changing for your institution right now. So I'm curious to see, hear about that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so I think we've learned a lot the few years that we've run it, and I think working with nonprofit organizations has really been impactful. So we'll continue to kind of grow in that direction. We want to engage in other communities that need the support that come from what the students have to offer. And so I feel like these students, when they're trying to deliver a project, we want to make it as impactful as possible, right? So the impact that they have on these other people's lives drives a fantastic project that's everlasting in their memory as far as their contribution. And so even if it wasn't something that maybe you would want delivered in a classroom, or a traditional setting with all of your technology and your ability, the project is still very impactful. So growing, we would grow areas and try to go to areas that have more need. And so we've worked in this particular area of Dubrovnik for a few years. And so I think we can expand that into places like Montenegro or down to Albania, down to Greece. There's always small communities that need that. And I think that what we talked about before about growing, how to create that interdisciplinary and keep that going. It's about the relationships you have with people that also feel similarly. And I think that we have interests from sustainability. And so we might encourage a third teacher to join us and make that more of a sustainability effort as well. So that's some things we have kind of cooking.
That's great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, then. Well, Mario, thank you so much for hosting this session. Very efficient, I must say. It was a great session. And so with that, I think that in the program, we have a break coming up. And so the next session starts on the hour, about 10 minutes from now. So I'm going to keep my camera open and invite the folks that are involved in the next session to come on up. But everyone from this session, thank you so much. It was great seeing you, and looking forward to hopefully seeing you in Vancouver.
Thanks for the opportunity, Nick, and everybody who put this together. Mario, thank you for agreeing to moderate this. This is really great. Thank you. I enjoyed
you.
everybody's presentation.
Thanks. Thanks, Barbara. Take care.